I thought the worst sound I would ever hear was the screech of metal when my sedan hit the guardrail. I was wrong. The worst sound was the nurse's voice telling me my mother refused to come to the emergency room unless I promised my newborn son was not there. She was not scared for me. She was negotiating. That was the moment I realized her love was a transaction I could no longer afford to pay. The spreadsheet on my laptop screen was beginning to blur into a grid of gray and white lines, swimming before my eyes like static. I blinked hard, trying to force the numbers back into their rigid columns. My head felt heavy, a sensation that had become my permanent state of being since my son was born 6 weeks ago. The clock in the corner of the screen read 10 in the morning, which meant I had already been awake for 6 hours. I was 33 years old. I had a healthy, beautiful baby boy sleeping in the nursery down the hall. I had a husband, Adam, who loved me. And I was back at my remote finance job 4 weeks earlier than I had planned, because my mother, Marlene, had made it very clear that maternity leave was a luxury for women who lacked ambition. Real adults do not fall behind. She had told me over the phone 3 days after I gave birth. Her voice clipped and efficient. The market does not care about your recovery time. Stella, if you lose your footing now, you will never climb back up. I adjusted the nursing pillow on my lap, even though the baby was not there, and typed a quick email to my supervisor. My wrists ached. My lower back throbbed. I was vibrating with a specific kind of exhaustion that feels less like sleepiness and more like a low-grade fever. But I kept typing. Marlene's voice was not just in my head. It was in the text messages lighting up my phone every 20 minutes. I picked up the phone. 3 new messages from Mom. The house looked cluttered in the photo you sent Adam's mother. Are you managing the schedule I sent you? Do not let yourself go. Stella. Appearance is discipline. I set the phone down face down on the desk. I needed to get ready. I had a pediatric follow-up appointment for the baby's weight check in an hour, but the sky outside my window was turning a bruised, angry purple. The Pennsylvania River Valley was known for its sudden, violent storms, and the air pressure was dropping fast enough to make my ears pop. I stood up, swaying slightly. I had arranged for my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, to watch the baby while I ran to the appointment. It was only a weight check, and the pediatrician's office had a strict policy about minimizing siblings or extra people in the waiting room due to flu season, since I had to pick up paperwork for my insurance company afterward. It made sense to leave him in Mrs. Higgins's warm, quiet living room, rather than dragging him through the rain. It was a logical decision. It was the safe decision. I walked to the window. The first drops were hitting the glass, heavy and hard, like pebbles. I felt a tightening in my chest, the familiar anxiety of trying to navigate the world while Marlene watched from a distance. Judging my velocity, by the time I pulled out of the driveway, the rain was coming down in sheets. My windshield wipers slapped back and forth. Fighting a losing battle against the deluge, I gripped the steering wheel with both hands, my knuckles white. The road to the clinic wound along the river, a 2-lane stretch of asphalt that curved tight against the guardrails. My phone, mounted on the dashboard for GPS, buzzed, then it buzzed again, and again. I glanced over, risking a split second of attention. The name Marlene flashed across the screen. The text preview was long. Stop parading the baby in public before we can control the narrative. People are already talking about how rushed the wedding was. If you go out looking like a mess, you confirm everything they say. Stay home until you can present yourself properly. I felt a flash of hot anger burn through the cold dampness of the car. Control the narrative. That was Marlene's favorite phrase. She spoke about our lives as if we were a corporation facing a PR crisis. My marriage to Adam had been fast because we fell in love. Not because of the baby, but Marlene refused to believe that joy could be simple. To her, everything was a strategy. I looked back at the road. The gray asphalt was slick, shimmering like oil. I was driving too fast. I knew I was. I lifted my foot off the accelerator, watching the speedometer drop from 45 to 35. I breathed out, telling myself to focus. I was a mother now. I had to be safe. I had to be steady. A massive delivery truck was coming in the opposite direction, its headlights cutting through the gloom like searchlights. As it rounded the curve, I saw the trailer twitch. It was a subtle movement at first, just a slight drift across the double yellow line. Then, physics took over. The truck hit a patch of standing water. The hydroplane was instant. The trailer swung out wide, a massive wall of metal sliding sideways into my lane. There was no time to think. There was only reflex. I yanked the wheel to the right to avoid being crushed by the trailer. My tires caught the gravel shoulder. The car slid. Losing all traction, the world tilted sideways. I saw the gray blur of the guardrail, the green blur of the wet trees, and then the sky was where the ground should be. The impact was loud, a crunch of metal that vibrated through my teeth. The car spun, caught the lip of the ditch, and rolled. One roll. The ceiling buckled. 2 rolls, glass shattered, 1,000 diamonds raining down on my lap. The car slammed to a halt on its side, wedged into the mud of the embankment. Silence. The only sound was the hiss of rain on the undercarriage and the ticking of the cooling engine. I was hanging sideways, suspended by my seatbelt. My hands were still gripping the steering wheel, though the airbag had deployed, punching me in the face with the force of a prizefighter. My first thought was not pain. My first thought was a frantic, animal panic. The baby. I twisted my head, screaming, a raw, guttural sound that tore my throat. Where is he? I clawed at the empty passenger seat, at the back seat. Then, the memory washed over me, cold and merciful. Mrs. Higgins, the living room, the warm blanket. He was not here. He was safe. He was dry and safe and sleeping. I slumped back against the seat, the adrenaline draining out of me, leaving room for the pain to rush in. My left wrist was bent at a sickening angle. My head felt like it had been split open with an axe. A warm trickle of blood ran down into my eye, blinding me on the right side. I tried to unbuckle the seatbelt, but my fingers would not work. The world began to gray out at the edges. I heard a voice outside, a man shouting, asking if anyone was alive. I tried to answer, but all that came out was a whimper. The emergency room was a sensory assault. Bright fluorescent lights that hummed like angry hornets, the smell of rubbing alcohol and old coffee, the beep of monitors. I was lying on a gurney in a trauma bay. My neck was in a brace, rigid and uncomfortable. My wrist was splinted, wrapped in thick bandages. A doctor was shining a light into my eyes, asking me to follow his finger. "State your name," he said. "Stella," I whispered. "Stella Morgan." "Do you know where you are?" "Stella, hospital." "Do you know what day it is?" "Tuesday." I closed my eyes. The nausea was rolling over me in waves. I wanted Adam. I wanted my baby. But mostly, strangely, I wanted my mother. Despite everything, despite the texts, despite the criticism, the child in me still believed that when you were hurt, your mother came. She came and she took charge, and she made the scary things go away. A nurse with kind eyes and tired shoulders stepped up to the side of the bed. She touched my arm gently. "Mrs. Morgan, we have stabilized your wrist, and the CT scan shows a mild concussion, but we need to keep you for observation due to the loss of consciousness. Is there someone we can call for you?" "Adam," I said. "My husband. We left a message for him." The nurse said, "He works at the plant." "Correct?" The receptionist said they were radioing him. "Is there anyone else?" I hesitated, the phone in my pocket. "Broken now. Screen shattered." Held the last words my mother had said to me. Control the narrative. But I was scared. I was 33. But I felt small and broken. "Call my mother." I said, "Marlene Morgan." The nurse nodded and stepped out of the curtained bay. I lay there, counting the ceiling tiles. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I imagined Marlene rushing in. I imagined her face softening when she saw the bruise on my forehead. I imagined her brushing the hair back from my face and saying, "It is okay. Stella, I am here." It was a fantasy. I knew it was a fantasy. But I clung to it because the alternative was too lonely to bear. 10 minutes passed. then 20. The nurse returned. She did not look at me directly at first. She busied herself with the IV drip, adjusting the flow rate. "Did you reach her?" I asked. "Is she coming?" The nurse stopped her hands. She looked at me, and I saw a flash of pity in her eyes that made my stomach turn over. "I spoke to your mother," the nurse said. Her voice was carefully neutral. "And?" "She asked if the baby was with you. I told you he was not. I said, 'He is safe.' Yes, I told her that." The nurse said, she paused. "Mrs. Morgan, your mother. She declined to come in." The air left the room. "What?" "She said that she would not come to the hospital unless she had a guarantee that the baby would not be brought here. She said she—" The nurse hesitated, looking down at her clipboard. "She said she would not be part of a scene. She said if you had been more careful, this would not have happened. And she is not going to sit in a waiting room while you," I am quoting her here, "while you make a spectacle of your incompetence." I felt a coldness spread through my chest that had nothing to do with the shock of the accident. It was a physical humiliation. It felt like being slapped in the face in a crowded room. "She is not coming?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Not unless we promised the baby would be kept out of it." The nurse said softly, "I told her we focus on the patient." But she insisted. She hung up. I turned my head away, staring at the beige curtain. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and stinging. It was not just that she wasn't coming, it was the transaction. She had leveraged my pain against access to my son. She had used the moment of my greatest vulnerability to draw a line in the sand, control the narrative. To her, a car accident wasn't a tragedy. It was a messy plot point that needed to be edited. Suddenly, the curtain was ripped back. Stella! It was Adam. He was still in his work boots, his reflective vest stained with grease. His face was pale, his eyes wide and terrified. He rushed to the side of the bed, grabbing my uninjured hand. "Oh, God. Stella." I drove as fast as I could. "Are you okay?" The doctor said concussion. "The wrist?" "I'm okay," I managed to say, squeezing his hand. "I'm okay. Adam." He pressed his forehead against my arm, breathing raggedly. "I am so sorry. I am so sorry I wasn't there. It's not your fault," I whispered. He pulled back, looking at me with a strange mixture of fear and guilt. "Stella, I have to tell you something." "What?" "Marlene called me. Today, before the accident." I stiffened. "She called you?" "Around noon," Adam said. He looked down at his boots. "She called me at work. She told me I needed to get you under control. She said you were spiraling. She said if I didn't step in and manage you, the family would have to intervene." "Intervene?" I repeated. The word tasted metallic. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to stress you out," Adam said, his voice cracking. "I thought I could handle her. I told her to back off. But she has a way of making me feel like I am the one who is crazy. She said we were risking the baby's future with our instability." I closed my eyes. The picture was becoming clearer. The texts, the call to Adam, the refusal to come to the hospital. It wasn't random cruelty. It was a campaign. A commotion at the nurse's station made us both look up. I heard a voice I recognized. "Mrs. Higgins." "I brought him," I heard her say. I didn't know where else to go. Then, I heard it. A cry, high-pitched and distressed. It was my son. I tried to sit up, ignoring the spinning of the room. "That's him," I said. "That's my baby." Adam turned to go, but the nurse stepped in. "I am sorry," she said gently. "Mrs. Higgins is in the lobby, but hospital policy. We can't have an infant back here in the trauma bay. It's for infection control and safety. He has to stay in the waiting area. But I need to see him." I pleaded. "I just need to see him." "Adam can go," the nurse suggested. Adam looked at me. Torn. "Go," I said. "Go check on him." Adam ran out. I lay back on the pillow, listening. I could still hear the cry, faint now, drifting down the long, sterile hallway. It was a sound of pure need. He wanted his mother, and I was here, strapped to a bed, broken and bruised. I broke down. It wasn't the pain in my wrist. It wasn't the concussion, it was the isolation. I felt entirely, completely alone. My mother had refused me. My husband was a good man, but he was out of his depth. My baby was crying for me, and I couldn't reach him. I sobbed, my chest heaving, the tears mixing with the dried blood on my cheek. Then, the phone at the nurse's station rang. It was close enough that I could hear the unit secretary pick it up. "Trauma unit," she said. There was a pause. The secretary's posture straightened. She looked surprised. "Yes, sir. No, sir. I understand. Yes, I am writing it down." She grabbed a pen, scribbling furiously on a notepad. "I will tell the charge nurse immediately. Yes, Mr. Morgan, we will expect you in 10 minutes. She hung up and looked at the nurse who had been attending to me. "Who was that?" my nurse asked. The secretary looked down at her note, her eyebrows raised. "Everett Morgan, the grandfather." I stopped crying. "Grandpa Everett? He said he is on his way," the secretary said, reading from her pad. "And he said to tell the staff to document every single call that has come in for Stella Morgan today. He said to document every refusal exactly as said. He said he wants the full log ready when he arrives." A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it made me dizzy. Everett, my father's father. He was a quiet man, a man who spent his days fishing and reading in his small cabin on the edge of town. He rarely got involved in family drama. He usually let Marlene steamroll over everyone, retreating into his silence. But not today. 10 minutes later, he walked in. He was wearing his old canvas raincoat, dripping wet. He held his hat in his hand. He looked out of place in the high-tech sterility of the ER, like a piece of weathered oak furniture in a laboratory. But his presence filled the room. He walked straight to my bed. He didn't look at the machines. He didn't look at the blood. He looked at my eyes. "Stella," he said. His voice was gravel and warmth. "Grandpa." I choked out. He took my hand, the good one, in both of his. His hands were rough, calloused, and incredibly warm. "I am here," he said. "I saw Adam in the lobby with the boy. They are fine. I told Adam to stay put. I wanted to see you first." He looked up at the nurse. "Did you write it down?" he asked. The nurse blinked. "Write what down?" "Sir?" "What her mother said." Everett said. His voice was not loud, but it was hard as iron. "Did you write down that she refused to come?" "Yes," the nurse said softly. "It is in the nursing notes." "Good," Everett said. "Keep it there. Do not delete it. Do not soften it." He turned back to me. His blue eyes, usually so gentle, were sharp. "You are safe. Stella, I am not going anywhere." I nodded, feeling the tension in my shoulders finally begin to unspool. A woman in a blazer walked into the bay. She held a clipboard and looked efficient but weary. "Mrs. Morgan? I am the hospital social worker on call." I stiffened. "Why do I need a social worker?" "It is standard procedure for accidents involving parents of young infants. Just to ensure you have support at home," she said quickly. "But there is something else." She glanced at Everett, then back to me. "We had an inquiry earlier today." She said, "Inquiry?" I asked. "Yes. Someone called the hospital switchboard about 4 hours ago. Around 10 in the morning." I frowned. "My accident was at 2 o'clock." "Who called?" Everett asked. The social worker looked at her notes. The caller did not give a name, but they identified themselves as a concerned family member. They wanted to know the specific hospital policies regarding emergency guardianship of an infant if the mother is incapacitated. The room went silent. The only sound was the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. 10 in the morning, I whispered. That was 4 hours before I got in the car. 4 hours before the rain started. They asked for the forms to be emailed. The social worker continued. We obviously did not send them, as there was no patient admitted at that time, but the caller was persistent. They wanted to know if a grandmother automatically assumes custody if the father is working. My stomach dropped. It felt like the floor had opened up beneath the gurney. Marlene. She hadn't just refused to come to the hospital. She had been preparing for something like this. She had been asking about guardianship before I even hit the guardrail. I looked at Everett. His face had gone pale, his jaw set tight. He knew. We both knew. The refusal to come to the ER wasn't an emotional reaction. It wasn't just cruelty. It was a move on a chessboard. It felt rehearsed. I whispered, "What?" Everett asked. When the nurse told me she wouldn't come, it sounded like a line she had practiced, kept out of it. She was waiting for this. Everett squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. "Rest now." "Stella," he said. His voice was low, vibrating with a suppressed anger I had never heard from him before. "You focus on healing. I am going to make a few calls." He looked at the social worker. "Keep that log," he said. "The timestamp, the inquiry. Keep it all." I closed my eyes as the pain medication finally began to pull me under. But the fear didn't leave. The crash had been violent, terrifying, but this was worse. My mother hadn't just abandoned me in an emergency. She had been waiting for the emergency to happen, and now, she was making her move. The adrenaline that had sustained me through the arrival of the police and the initial chaos of the emergency room began to drain away, leaving behind a heavy, aching sludge in my veins. My wrist throbbed in time with my heartbeat, a dull, rhythmic hammer against the bone, but the physical pain was distant, muffled by the sharp, terrifying clarity of what I had just learned. Marlene had been asking about guardianship before the rain even started. Everett sat in the plastic chair beside my gurney, his presence a fortress against the sterile, beeping world around us. He did not fidget. He did not scroll through a phone. He simply sat, his hands resting on his knees, watching me with a gaze that was both ancient and alert. He waited until the nurse left the room, the curtain swooshing shut on its track. Before he leaned forward, "Stella," he said. His voice was low, barely louder than the hum of the air conditioning. "I need you to think very carefully. The fog in your head is going to make this hard, but it is important." I blinked, trying to focus on his face. The light above us was too bright, searing into my retinas. "What is it?" I asked. "Did you sign anything today that you did not read?" The question hung in the air. "Today?" I asked. "No. I mean, just the consent forms for treatment when I got here. But my wrist." I scribbled with my right hand. It was barely a signature. "Not today." Then, Everett said. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Recently, in the last few weeks, since the baby was born. Did Marlene send you anything? A document? A policy update? Anything she framed as administrative housekeeping?" I closed my eyes, searching the chaotic file cabinet of my postpartum memory. The last 6 weeks had been a blur of feedings, diaper changes, sleepless nights, and the constant, buzzing anxiety of returning to work. Marlene had been helpful in her way, or what I had thought was helpful. She sent emails with subject lines like urgent, insurance, or for the baby's file. There was one, I whispered. Everett did not push. He waited. "About 2 weeks ago," I said, the memory surfacing like a dark shape in deep water. "She sent me a PDF. She said it was a temporary family assistance form. What did she tell you it was for?" "She said she wanted to set up a savings account for the baby at her credit union." I said, the realization making my stomach churn. "She said they had better interest rates than our bank. She told me she needed authorization to list herself as a contributor so she could deposit money directly without going through me every time. She said it was just a formality to bypass the wire transfer fees. And you signed it?" I nodded, instantly regretting the movement as pain spiked behind my eyes. I was exhausted. "Grandpa," she called me 3 times while I was trying to get the baby down for a nap. She said the rate offer expired at 5 o'clock that day. I just wanted her to stop calling. I printed it, signed it, scanned it, and emailed it back. "Did you read the fine print?" Everett asked. I bit my lip. I skimmed it. It looked like standard banking language. Beneficiary details, account access. Everett let out a slow breath. He reached out and covered my hand again. "Stella," he said gently, "Marlene does not use paperwork to help you. She uses paperwork the way other people use raised voices. It is her volume. It is how she screams. I looked at him, confused. What do you mean? He looked toward the curtain, ensuring we were truly alone. 10 years ago, he said, when your father's estate was finally settling. Marlene offered to help me manage the transition of my own accounts. I was grieving. I was getting older. She told me she found a tax loophole that would save the family thousands. All I had to do was sign a power of attorney limited to real estate transactions. I never knew this. I said, because I never told you. He said, I signed it. 2 months later, I went to the bank to withdraw cash for a fishing trip, and the teller told me my daily limit had been lowered to $50. Marlene had used that document to restructure my entire portfolio. She deemed my spending reckless because I bought a new boat motor. She had legally designated herself as my fiscal conservator. My mouth fell open. She did that to you? It took me 6 months and a lawyer to undo it. Everett said, she claimed she was doing it for my own good. She said I was getting senile. I was 65 and sharp as a tack. But she had the paper. Paper does not care about the truth. Stella, paper only cares about the signature. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. The form I signed, it wasn't about a savings account. Was it? We need to find out what it was, Everett said firmly. But first, we need to get you home. You are no good to anyone in a hospital bed. The discharge process was a blur of warnings and instructions. A doctor with graying temples stood over me, shining a light in my eyes one last time. You have a grade 2 concussion. Mrs. Morgan, he said, your brain has been bruised. This is not something you can power through. You need absolute brain rest for the next 48 hours. No screens, no reading, no bright lights, and certainly no stress. I laughed. A dry, brittle sound. I have a 6-week-old baby and a mother who is plotting against me. How do I avoid stress? The doctor did not smile. He looked at Adam, who had returned from the waiting room and was standing in the corner, holding our sleeping son in his car seat carrier. Mr. Morgan, he said, this is on you. She cannot be the primary caregiver for the next 2 days. If she falls, if she faints while holding the infant, the consequences could be catastrophic. She needs sleep. Adam nodded, his face pale. I understand. I took the week off. I called my boss. A woman in a navy blue suit walked in as the doctor left. She introduced herself as the discharge planner. She had the kind of aggressive cheerfulness that usually masked bad news. And I felt my muscles tense. I just wanted to go over the home plan, she said, glancing at her clipboard. Given the nature of the accident and the presence of an infant, we want to make sure you have resources. She is not an unfit mother, Everett said from his chair. His voice was sharp, cutting through the woman's rehearsed speech. She was hit by a truck. The woman blinked, surprised by the steel in his tone. Oh, I know. I am absolutely not suggesting that. There is no child safety concern here. The social worker's note was about resource allocation. We just want to make sure that with the injury, there is another adult present. I am here, Adam said, stepping forward. I am his father. Good, the planner said, checking a box. And we can arrange for a visiting nurse to check your vitals in 2 days so you do not have to drive. I realized then that the system was already watching me. It was benign for now, but the eye had opened. Marlene's inquiry about guardianship had triggered a flag. It was a small flag, a yellow one rather than a red one, but it was there in my file, potential instability. We left the hospital an hour later. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet, reflecting the red taillights of the cars on the highway. I sat in the passenger seat of Adam's truck, my arm cradled in a sling, watching the world slide by. Every bump in the road sent a jolt of pain through my head. I closed my eyes, but behind my eyelids, I saw the grill of the truck, the spinning horizon, the ditch. When we pulled into our driveway, the house looked different. It was the same small, white-siding bungalow we had bought 2 years ago, but it felt fragile now. The sanctuary had been breached. Adam helped me inside. The living room was cluttered with baby toys and half-folded laundry. The mess I had been so worried about Marlene seeing, now, it just looked like life. There was a vase of flowers sitting on the front porch steps. They must have been delivered while we were at the hospital, Adam said, reaching down to grab them. They were white lilies, funeral flowers. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Bring them inside. I said, I want to see the card. Adam set the vase on the kitchen table. The arrangement was professional, stiff, and expensive. It looked like something you would send to a business associate who had won an award, or perhaps lost a merger. I pulled the small envelope from the plastic fork stuck in the greenery. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was not Marlene's. It was the florist's script, transcribed from a phone order. Families pull together in emergencies. We must do what is best for the next generation. Rest up. Mother. I stared at the card. It did not say I love you. It did not say I am so glad you are alive. It did not say I am sorry I refused to come. It said, we must do what is best for the next generation. That was not a get-well wish. It was a mission statement. She is insane, Adam said, reading the card over my shoulder. He sounded tired, defeat leaking into his voice. Who sends lilies to a car crash survivor? Someone who wants to remind you that you are mortal, I said. I looked at the clock. It was 7 p.m. I needed to pump. I needed to eat. I needed to lie down in a dark room and forget that my mother viewed my survival as a logistical inconvenience. A knock at the door made us both jump. It was Mrs. Higgins, the neighbor who had watched the baby. She was holding a casserole dish covered in foil. Her face etched with concern. I saw the lights come on, she said, stepping into the hallway as Adam opened the door. Oh, Stella, look at you. You poor dear. She bustled into the kitchen, setting the casserole down next to the lilies. She looked at the flowers and frowned. From your mother? She asked. Yes, I said. Mrs. Higgins pressed her lips together. She was a woman who thrived on the neighborhood grapevine, but she had a good heart. She hesitated. Looking from Adam to me, I probably shouldn't say this, she began, twisting her hands in her apron. But I was at the pharmacy earlier. Before you got home, I went to pick up my blood pressure medication. And? I asked, bracing myself. Your mother was there. She said she was at the counter, talking to the pharmacist, and there was a line behind her, 3 or 4 people. What was she saying? Mrs. Higgins sighed. She was telling the pharmacist that she needed to stock up on formula because her daughter, that is you, had nearly lost the baby in a reckless driving accident. She said the baby was in the car and it was a miracle he wasn't thrown from the vehicle. My blood ran cold. The baby wasn't with me. I know, Mrs. Higgins said, her voice rising. I wanted to shout. He was in my living room watching Sesame Street. But she was so authoritative. She was shaking her head and telling people that you had been driving erratically for weeks and that she had tried to warn you. She was crying. Stella, actual tears. People were comforting her. She is seeding the story. I said. My voice sounded hollow to my own ears. She is telling everyone I endangered the baby. I said, so that when she makes her move, the town will already be on her side. They will think she is the savior stepping in to protect a child from a negligent mother. Mrs. Higgins looked uncomfortable. I just thought you should know. It didn't sit right with me. It felt nasty. Thank you, Mrs. Higgins, Adam said, guiding her gently back to the door. We appreciate the food, really. When the door clicked shut, the silence in the kitchen was deafening. She is lying to the whole town, Adam whispered. It is not just lying, I said, leaning against the counter for support. It is marketing. She is branding me as unstable. Adam turned away, running his hands through his hair. He walked to the sink and gripped the edge of the counter until his knuckles turned white. Stella, he said, without turning around, I have to tell you the rest. The rest? I asked. About the call today. When she called me at work. You said she told you to get me under control. There was more, Adam said. He turned around. He looked young and scared, stripped of his usual easygoing confidence. She asked about the car loan. He said, What? She knows we are behind. She knows we skipped last month to pay for the nursery furniture? I don't know how she knows, but she does. Maybe she saw a statement on the counter when she visited last week. And? She offered to pay it off. Adam said, not just the missed payment, the whole loan. $12,000. I stared at him. And what did she want in return? She said she wanted us to agree to a temporary arrangement. Adam said, she used those exact words. She said that while you recover, she thinks it would be best if the baby stayed with her at night, just for a few weeks, so you can sleep. She said she would pay the car note as a family stability grant. I felt the nausea rise in my throat again. She tried to buy our son. Adam flinched. She didn't put it like that. She made it sound like she was helping us get back on our feet. Did you say no? I asked. Adam hesitated. The silence stretched out, thin and agonizing. I didn't say yes, he said finally. I told her we would talk about it. I was at work. Stella. My boss was waving at me. I just wanted to get off the phone. But you didn't say no. I didn't want to make her angry. He said, his voice rising in defense. You know how she gets. If I shut her down, she escalates. I thought if I was vague, she would calm down. She does not calm down. Adam, I shouted, and the pain in my head exploded like a firework. I grabbed the counter, gasping. She does not calm down. She reloads. Adam rushed to me, trying to hold me, but I pulled away. She offered you money to take my baby away at night, and you didn't tell her to go to hell. I am sorry, he whispered. I am so sorry. I was scared about the money. I was scared about the job. I looked at him. I loved him. But in that moment, I saw his softness not as a virtue, but as a liability. Marlene would eat him alive. She would chew him up and spit him out, and she would use his politeness as the seasoning. We need Everett, I said. Call him, now. Everett arrived 20 minutes later. He didn't come alone. He walked in with a woman I had not seen in years. She was short, with steel-gray hair cut into a sharp bob, wearing a trench coat that looked like it had seen better decades but was made of expensive wool. This is Lila Hart, Everett said, shaking the rain off his coat. You remember her? I nodded slowly. Lila Hart. She had been the premier family law attorney in our county for 30 years before she retired to breed golden retrievers. She was legendary for two things: her terrifying competence and her chain-smoking habit. She wasn't smoking now, but she smelled faintly of menthol and mints. Hello, Stella, Lila said. Her voice was raspy and dry. You look like you went 10 rounds with a semi-truck. Essentially, I said. Everett called me, Lila said, pulling a chair out from the kitchen table and sitting down without waiting to be asked. He told me you signed a document. I nodded. Do you have a copy? She asked. I pulled my laptop from my bag. It was cracked near the hinge, but it booted up. I navigated to my sent folder, my fingers clumsy on the trackpad. I found the email to Marlene. Subject: Assistance form. I opened the attachment and turned the screen toward Lila. She put on a pair of reading glasses that hung on a chain around her neck. She leaned in, her eyes scanning the document. The room was silent. I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear Adam breathing unevenly in the corner. Lila read for a long time. She scrolled down. She read the second page. She scrolled back up. Finally, she sat back and took off her glasses. Well, she said, it is certainly creative. Is it guardianship? I asked. No, Lila said. It is not guardianship. Guardianship requires a court order. This is a voluntary delegation of authority. So it's nothing? Adam asked. Hopeful? Lila turned her gaze to Adam. It is not nothing. It is a lever. She tapped the screen. Look at this clause here. She said, the undersigned grants permission for Marlene Morgan to act as an authorized representative for the purpose of coordinating medical, financial, and logistical care for the minor child. And here, access to all records deemed necessary for the continuity of family welfare. She looked at me. Stella, this doesn't give her custody. If she took the baby, the police would bring him back. But it gives her the legal right to talk to your doctors. It gives her the right to talk to the baby's pediatrician. It gives her the right to call your insurance company and discuss your mental health history if it pertains to family welfare. My stomach twisted. She can see my records? She can ask for them, Lila corrected. And with this paper, a lot of overworked administrators would just hand them over. But the dangerous part is the narrative. There was that word again, narrative. If she has this document, Lila said, and you try to stop her from doing something, say, picking the baby up from daycare later, she can pull this out and say, look, the mother signed this. She admitted she needed help. She admitted she couldn't handle it alone. It is proof of your incompetence. Signed by your own hand. I signed it because I was tired. I whispered, the court doesn't care if you were tired, Lila said grimly. The court sees a signature. Why? I asked, looking at Everett. Why would she want this 2 weeks ago? Before the accident? Because she was building a case. Everett said softly. He was standing by the window, watching the street. She was gathering evidence. She probably planned to use it later, maybe in a few months, to pressure you into letting her take the baby for weekends, or to force you to quit your job. But the accident happened, Lila said. The truck hydroplaned. That was an act of God. But Marlene is an opportunist. She had the weapon ready. And the universe just handed her the ammunition. She has the form. I said, she has the text messages where I sound stressed. She has the pharmacy believing I am negligent. And now she has a concussion diagnosis to prove I am unstable. It is a perfect storm. Lila agreed. So what do? Adam asked. Do we sue her? No. Lila said sharply. You do not sue. You do not give her a battlefield. If you sue, she gets to go to court and tell a judge how worried she is about her daughter. She gets to play the martyr. We revoke it. I said, exactly. Lila said, we revoke it. Tonight. She reached into her oversized leather bag and pulled out a yellow legal pad. We are going to write a formal revocation of all prior authorizations, she said. We are going to draft it now. You will sign it. I will witness it. Everett will witness it. And tomorrow morning, we are going to fax it to every doctor, every bank, and every insurance company connected to you or that baby. And then we are going to send a copy to Marlene via certified mail. Will that stop her? I asked. Legally? Yes, Lila said. It cuts the string. But psychologically? She paused, looking at me with a pity that was tempered by respect. Psychologically, this is a declaration of war. You are cutting off her access. She will not take that well. Let her be angry, I said. My voice was stronger now. I looked at the lilies on the table. We must do what is best for the next generation. She refused to come to the hospital. I said, she left me there. She doesn't get to be angry. Lila nodded. Good. Keep that anger. You are going to need it. We spent the next hour drafting the document. Lila's handwriting was spiky and aggressive. She used words like immediate effect and rescind and null and void. When it was done, I signed it. My hand shook, pain radiating up my arm, but I forced the pen to move. Stella Morgan. Everett signed next. Then Lila. There, Lila said, tearing the page off the pad. I will take this to my office and type it up properly tonight. I'll meet you at the post office at 8 in the morning to notarize the final version. She stood up and buttoned her coat. One more thing. Stella, she said. Yes? Change your locks, she said. Adam looked up. She has a key? She is your mother. Lila said. She probably has a copy you forgot you gave her, or she made one when she was watching the house. Change them. Tonight. Lila left, leaving a trail of mint scent in the air. Everett stayed behind for a moment. He walked over to where I was sitting and placed his hand on my shoulder. You did good, he said. I don't feel good. I said, I feel hunted. That is because you are finally seeing the predator, he said. Before, you just thought it was tall grass. He put on his hat. Get some sleep. Stella, I will sit on my porch tonight with the phone. If she shows up, you call me. When he left, the house felt very big and very quiet. Adam went to the hardware store to get new deadbolts. I sat in the living room, Staring at the yellow legal pad on the table, I had revoked the power. I had drawn the boundary. But as I sat there, listening to the wind rattle the windows, I couldn't shake the question that had started it all. Why? Why did she want access before the accident? Lila said she was building a case. Everett said she was gathering evidence. But for what? Marlene didn't just want control for control's sake. She was strategic. She was transactional. I thought about the car loan offer, $12,000. I thought about the savings account excuse. I thought about the rumors at the pharmacy. She wasn't just trying to take the baby. She was trying to replace me. She wanted to be the mother. She wanted a redo. She wanted a child she could mold from scratch. Without the inconvenient rebellion that I had developed in my 30s, I picked up the card from the flowers again. Families pull together. I crumpled it in my good hand, the stiff paper crinkling into a ball. I walked to the trash can and threw it in. Then I threw the lilies in on top of it. I went to the nursery. My son was sleeping in his crib, his chest rising and falling in a gentle rhythm. He looked so peaceful. He had no idea that his grandmother was currently strategizing how to acquire him like a distressed asset. I reached through the bars and touched his cheek, over my dead body. I whispered, and for the first time since the crash, I felt something other than fear. I felt a cold, hard resolve. I was not just a victim of a car accident anymore. I was a mother protecting her young. And if Marlene wanted a fight, she was going to get one. But first, I had to survive the night, and I had to figure out what her next move would be. Because one thing was certain, Marlene Morgan never played just one hand at a time. The fax machine in the back corner of the UPS store whirred and clicked, a rhythmic, grinding sound that felt oddly satisfying. I watched the paper slide through the feeder, page by page. It was the formal revocation of authority, drafted by Lila Hart, notarized by the grim-faced woman at the counter, and now flying through the phone lines to the hospital records department, the pediatrician's office, and my insurance provider. I felt a phantom weight lift off my chest with every page that vanished into the machine. "Done," the clerk said, handing me the confirmation sheet. "That will be $12.50. I paid her, my hand trembling slightly as I put the receipt in my wallet. It was a small victory, but it was the first time in 3 days I had felt proactive rather than reactive. I walked out into the cool morning air, the dampness of the river valley clinging to my coat. The headache from the concussion was still there, a dull pressure behind my eyes like a thumb pressing against a bruise. But I could manage it. I drove home slowly, checking my mirrors constantly. I wasn't looking for trucks this time. I was looking for her silver sedan. When I got home, the house was quiet. Adam had taken the rest of the week off, and he was in the nursery, rocking the baby. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching them. The scene was so normal, so peaceful, that I almost convinced myself I had imagined the malice of the last few days. Maybe Marlene was just a worried grandmother. Maybe I was the one who was paranoid, my brain rattled by the impact of the crash. Then the mail arrived. It was a thick envelope from a local law firm I did not recognize. The return address was embossed in raised black ink. I opened it at the kitchen table, using my good hand to slice the paper. It was a letter addressed to the medical records department of the hospital. With a carbon copy sent to me, "To whom it may concern, please find attached a request for the complete medical records of Stella Morgan. Pertaining to her admission on October 24th, this request is made pursuant to the authorized consent on file, dated October 10th. Please note that any subsequent revocation of this consent is currently under dispute regarding capacity and timing, and we assert that the original authorization remains valid for the purpose of ensuring continuity of family care." I stared at the paper. The date of the letter was today. She knew, somehow, she knew I was revoking the form, or she had anticipated it. She was arguing that I couldn't revoke the permission because I was under dispute regarding capacity. She was using the concussion against me. She was saying I was too brain damaged to know I didn't want her in my business. I sat down hard, the room spinning slightly. "She is not stopping." I whispered. Adam walked in, holding the baby against his shoulder. He saw my face and the paper in my hand. "What is it?" he asked. "She is fighting the revocation," I said, handing him the letter. "She is claiming the original form is still valid because I am not in my right mind." Adam read it, his jaw tightening. "Can she do this?" "She can try." I said, "It is just a letter. It is bluster, but it freezes things. The hospital legal department will see this and pause everything until they figure out who actually has the right to my chart. It buys her time." "Why does she want the record so badly?" Adam asked. "You have a broken wrist and a concussion. It is not a secret. She wants the doctor's notes." I said, realizing it as I spoke. "She wants to see if I told the doctors I was depressed. She wants to see if I mentioned the stress at work. She is looking for a sentence, just one sentence, that says patient appears overwhelmed or patient reports anxiety. If she finds that, she can take it to a judge." I felt a sudden, sharp clarity. This wasn't just about being a grandmother. This was an investigation. Everett arrived an hour later. He brought a bag of groceries, eggs, bread, coffee, and set them on the counter without fanfare. He looked at the letter from the law firm. Reading it twice, he did not look surprised. "She is moving faster than I thought," he said, folding the letter and placing it back on the table. "Grandpa," I said, leaning against the counter, "why is she doing this? I know she likes control. I know she has always been critical. But this feels like she is trying to destroy me. She is trying to prove I am incompetent. Why?" Everett sighed. He took off his hat and ran a hand through his thinning white hair. He looked old today, the lines around his eyes etched deep with fatigue. "Sit down." "Stella," he said. We sat at the small kitchen table. The baby was asleep in the swing nearby, the rhythmic clicking of the device filling the silence. "You were only 7 when your father died." Everett began. "You remember it as a heart attack. Sudden, tragic." I nodded. "I remember the funeral. I remember Mom wearing black and crying for weeks. She cried." Everett said, "But she was also terrified. Daniel did not leave things in good order. Or rather, that is what she told everyone. She said he left us with debt. She said the life insurance was barely enough to cover the mortgage. She told me we were poor." I said, "I remember her cutting coupons. I remember her telling me I couldn't go on the school trip to Washington because we didn't have the money." Everett's eyes hardened. "We were not poor. Stella, Daniel was a careful man. He was a shift supervisor at the steel mill for 20 years. He had a pension, he had a 401k, and he had a separate policy he took out when you were born." "So where did it go?" I asked. "She spent it," Everett said, "but not on you. She spent it on appearances. She paid off her own parents' debts. She bought that car she drove for 2 years and then crashed. She made bad investments in real estate schemes she heard about at the beauty parlor. I never knew that." I said, "You weren't supposed to." Everett said, "She told you it was adult business. But there was something else. Daniel knew she was impulsive with money. He knew she liked the feeling of writing checks more than the reality of balancing a ledger." He looked at me directly. "There was a clause in his estate," Everett said, "a condition tied to family continuity." "What does that mean?" "It meant that certain funds were locked." Everett explained. "They were designated for direct family maintenance. If Marlene remarried, she lost access. If she moved out of the county, she lost access. And most importantly, the funds were tied to the presence of a dependent child." "Me," I whispered. "You." Everett agreed. "As long as she was raising you." She received a stipend. It wasn't a fortune, but it was steady. It was enough to live on without working if she was careful. And when I turned 18, it stopped. Everett said, "The tap turned off. That was the year she suddenly decided you needed to pay rent if you lived at home. That was the year she pushed you to get a full-time job while you were in college." I stared at him. I always thought she was trying to teach me responsibility. She was trying to replace the income. Everett said, "But here's the thing. Stella, I made a few calls this morning. To Daniel's old benefits office, and to the bank where the trust was held." "And?" "Marlene called them last week." Everett said, She was asking about dependent eligibility for the next generation. My mouth went dry. She was asking if the stipend restarts for a grandchild. I said, she was asking if the family continuity clause applies to your son. Everett corrected. Specifically, she wanted to know if the funds would be released to the legal guardian of Daniel Morgan's grandchild if the biological mother was unavailable. Unavailable. The word hung in the air, cold and sterile. She isn't just trying to take the baby because she thinks she is a better mother. I said, my voice shaking. She is trying to take the baby because he is a paycheck. She has debt. Stella. Everett said softly, I don't know how much, but I hear things. She took a second mortgage on her house last year. She has credit cards maxed out. She is drowning, and she sees your son as a life raft. I felt sick, physically ill. I looked at the swing where my son was sleeping. He wasn't a person to her. He was an annuity. She needs me to be incompetent. I realized she needs me to be unstable. Because if I am fit, I am the guardian. And if I am the guardian, I control the money. But if she can prove I am brain damaged from the accident or emotionally unstable, then she steps in. Everett finished. She becomes the representative. She gets the check. I put my head in my hands. It was so monstrous I could barely comprehend it. My own mother. She is desperate. Everett said, and desperate people do not have boundaries. They only have goals. We met with Lila Hart that afternoon. Adam drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I sat in the back with the baby, refusing to let him out of my sight. Lila's office was actually her living room, a space filled with dog beds and stacks of legal journals. She listened to Everett's discovery about the trust and the inquiries, her face unreadable. When we finished, she lit a cigarette, realized I had the baby, and immediately put it out. Old habits, she muttered. She looked at me. Okay, she said, here's the reality. The fact that she asked about the money is gross, but it is not illegal. The fact that she is disputing your revocation is annoying, but it is standard procedural harassment. So we can't stop her? Adam asked. We can stop her from taking the baby, Lila said, unless you start doing heroin in the town square. No judge is going to give her custody over a fit father and mother. But that is not her game. What is her game? I asked. Chaos, Lila said. She knows she can't win a straight custody battle. So she is going to try to force a settlement. She wants you to break. She wants to create so much pressure, so much fear, and so much rumor that you agree to let her have partial decision-making power just to make it stop. She wants a seat at the table, I said. And if she gets a seat at the table, Lila said, she can access the funds. If she is a co-guardian or has power of attorney for the child's finances, she can likely trigger the release of the trust money. She leaned forward. Stella, she is going to come at you hard. She is going to use the concussion. She is going to say you are dizzy. She is going to say you are forgetting things. She is going to gaslight you until you wonder if you actually are crazy. I am not crazy. I said, I am hurt. Keep saying that, Lila said, and do not give her an inch. If she calls, do not answer. If she emails, send it to me. And for God's sake, do not let her in your house. The next 2 days were a study in siege warfare. I focused on recovery. It was the only weapon I had. I followed the doctor's orders religiously. I napped when the baby napped. I drank gallons of water. I kept the curtains drawn to help my headache. I joined an online support group for traumatic birth and accident survivors. I typed my story into the forum with one hand. Leaving out the names, the responses were immediate. My mother-in-law did this. One woman wrote, she called CPS on me because I had postpartum depression. It's called administrative aggression. They use the system to bully you because they can't beat you in a fair fight. Administrative aggression. The term clicked into place like a key in a lock. It wasn't love. It wasn't concern. It was bullying by bureaucracy. The moderator of the group, a woman named Sarah, messaged me privately. Document everything. She wrote, get a composition notebook, one with sewn binding so pages can't be removed. Write down every interaction, date, time, what was said. If it goes to court, a contemporaneous log is more powerful than memory. I sent Adam to the store to buy a notebook. I started that night. October 26th, 7 p.m. Received Lily's. Card implied criticism of parenting. No apology. October 27th, 9 a.m. Revoked authorization. October 27th, 11 a.m. Letter received from Law Office of Miller Associates. Disputing revocation. Writing it down made it feel manageable. It took the emotion out of it and turned it into data. But Marlene was not done. On the third day, a Thursday, around 4 in the afternoon, a car pulled into the driveway. I was in the living room, folding laundry. The baby was doing tummy time on a mat. I saw the silver sedan through the window. Adam, I called out. My voice was calm, but my heart hammered. She is here. Adam came in from the kitchen. He looked out the window. She has a casserole dish, he said. I looked. Marlene was walking up the driveway. She was dressed immaculately in a beige cardigan and slacks. She was holding a large ceramic dish covered in foil. She looked like the picture of a doting grandmother. She wasn't looking at the house, though. She was looking at the neighbor's yard. Mrs. Higgins was out gardening. Marlene paused, waved to Mrs. Higgins, and offered a sad, brave smile. She made a show of adjusting the heavy dish, acting as if she were carrying the weight of the world along with the lasagna. She is performing. I said, she knows Mrs. Higgins is watching. She walked up the steps and knocked. Rap, rap, rap. The knock was confident. Don't open it, I said. I know, Adam said. We stood in the living room, silent. She knocked again, louder. Stella? Her voice came through the door. It was muffled but audible. Stella, I know you're home. I brought dinner. I know you must be struggling to cook. I didn't move. Stella, please. This is ridiculous. I am your mother. Open the door. I walked to the door. I didn't unlock it. I spoke through the wood. Go away. Mom. Stella. Her voice pitched up, just loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I am trying to help. You are injured. You need support. I do not need your help. I said, I need you to leave. There was a silence on the other side. Then, her voice dropped. It became the voice she used when no one was watching, the cold, steel voice. You are making a mistake. Stella, you are acting erratic. People are noticing. I am following my lawyer's advice. I said, Lawyer? She laughed. A sharp bark. You have a lawyer? Who? That old chain smoker Lila? She's been out of the game for 10 years. You are listening to a ghost. Leave, I said. This will look very bad for you. Marlene said. Her voice was right up against the crack of the door now. When I tell the judge that I tried to bring you food and you locked me out? When I tell them you are isolating the baby? It fits the profile. Stella. Paranoia. Withdrawal. Unfitness. I felt a surge of rage so hot it almost blinded me. I reached for the deadbolt. I wanted to open the door and scream at her. I wanted to throw her casserole into the street. Then I stopped. That is what she wants. She wants a scene. She wants Mrs. Higgins to see me screaming. She wants me to look crazy. I pulled my hand back. Suddenly, I heard another voice from the porch. Step away from the door. Marlene. It was Everett. I moved to the peephole. Everett must have been walking over. He didn't have his truck. He was standing at the bottom of the porch steps, looking up at her. Everett, Marlene said. Her voice faltered. I didn't see you. Obviously, Everett said. You are too busy performing for the neighbors. I am bringing my daughter dinner, Marlene cried, gesturing with the dish. Is that a crime? It is when you are using the lasagna as a battering ram, Everett said. He walked up the steps. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, which was somehow worse. Put the dish down. Marlene, he said. She hesitated. You can't tell me what to do. I am the grandmother, and I am the grandfather, Everett said, and I am telling you that you will not weaponize this community against her. I spoke to Mrs. Higgins this morning. I told her the truth about the hospital. Marlene froze. You did what? I told her you refused to come. Everett said, I told her you negotiated. Marlene's face went white. She looked over her shoulder at Mrs. Higgins' yard. Mrs. Higgins was standing by her rose bushes, watching. She wasn't smiling. She was leaning on her rake, staring at Marlene with a look of cold appraisal. You had no right. Marlene hissed. That is family business. You made it public when you started lying at the pharmacy. Everett said. He stepped closer to her. He was taller than her, broad-shouldered despite his age. Go home. Marlene, take your casserole. Marlene looked at him. For a second, her mask slipped. I saw it through the peephole. It wasn't anger in her eyes. It was fear. Pure, naked fear. She was losing control of the narrative, and if she lost the narrative, she lost the money. She glared at the door one last time. This isn't over, she said. She turned, marched down the steps, and walked to her car. She didn't wave to Mrs. Higgins. She threw the casserole dish into the passenger seat with a clatter, slammed the door, and drove away. I unlocked the door and opened it. Everett was standing there, watching her car disappear around the bend. Thank you, I said, leaning against the doorframe. He turned to me. You held the line. Stella, you didn't open the door. That was the hard part. I wanted to. I admitted. I wanted to scream at her. I know, Everett said, but silence is louder. Come on, let's go inside. That night, after Adam had gone to bed, Everett sat with me in the living room. The house was dark, lit only by the street lamp outside. I need to tell you the rest, Everett said. He was holding a mug of tea, the steam rising in the dim light. The rest of what? I asked. About the trust? I thought you told me everything. The family continuity clause. I told you the what, Everett said. I didn't tell you the who. He took a sip of tea. Marlene thinks she can access the money because she assumes she is the default trustee if you are out of the picture. She thinks that because she was the trustee for you when you were a child. But she isn't? No. Everett said. Daniel learned. By the time he set up the second part of the trust, the part for the grandchildren, he knew Marlene couldn't be trusted with the principal, so he appointed an independent trustee. Who? I asked. A firm in the city. Everett said. Redwood Fiduciary Services. But there is a local liaison, someone who has to sign off on any release of funds to ensure the family conditions are met. And who is that? Everett set his mug down. Me. I stared at him. You? Daniel asked me 2 days before he died. Everett said. His voice was thick with emotion. He grabbed my arm in the hospital room. He said, Dad, if there are grandkids, don't let her spend their future on new siding and cars. You hold the key. So you have the power? I asked. I have the veto. Everett said, Marlene knows the trust exists, but she doesn't know I am the liaison. She thinks it's just a faceless bank. She thinks if she sends them the right paperwork, guardianship papers, medical records proving your incapacity, they will just cut the check. She doesn't know you are the one watching the gate. I realized, no, Everett said, and we are not going to tell her. Not yet. Why? Because as long as she thinks she is fighting a bank, she will be sloppy, Everett said. She will send letters. She will make demands. She will leave a paper trail, if she knew it was me. She would try to charm me or blackmail me, but against a bank? She will show her true colors. I looked at my grandfather. I saw the strategy in his eyes. He wasn't just a fisherman. He was a father protecting his son's legacy. Stella, he said, I need you to understand something. The accident. What about it? When she refused to come to the hospital. Everett said slowly, I have been thinking about it. Me too. If she had come. Everett said, she would have been just another family member in the waiting room, but by not coming. She created a void. I said, yes. And now, she can fill that void with her own story. She can say, I wasn't there because Stella pushed me away, or I wasn't there because I was so distraught. No, I said, the realization hit me like a physical blow, harder than the memory of the airbag. If she didn't come, she could claim she was kept away. Exactly. Everett said, I thought about the letter from the lawyer. Dispute regarding capacity. She isn't just saying I am unstable. I said, she is going to say that in my unstable state, I banned her from the hospital. She is going to say that I prevented the grandmother from seeing the child. She is going to turn her abandonment into my cruelty. It is a flip. Everett said, a judo move. She uses your injury to justify her absence, and her absence to prove your instability. I felt a chill that went down to my bones. It was so calculated. It was evil. She wanted me to be alone in that hospital. I whispered. She wanted me to be scared and isolated so that when I finally cracked, she could point a finger and say, see, she can't handle it. Yes, Everett said. I looked at the notebook on the table. The log of administrative aggression. She wants a fight, I said. She wants a surrender. Everett corrected. She isn't getting one. I said. I picked up the notebook. She thinks this is about who is the better mother. She thinks this is about emotions, but it's not. No. Everett said, it's about the money. I said, it has always been about the money, and if she wants to fight about money, she's going to have to go through the one person she can't manipulate. You? Everett asked. No. I said, the trustee. I looked at Everett. We need to contact Redwood Fiduciary Services. I said, we need to tell them that the dependent has arrived, and we need to tell them that there is a predator circling the water. Everett smiled. It was a grim, tight smile. I will call them tomorrow, he said. Good, I said, because I am done playing defense. If she wants to audit my life, I am going to audit hers. I stood up. My head still hurt, but the fog was gone. I'm going to find out exactly how much debt she is in. I said, and then I am going to make sure that the only thing she inherits from this family is the silence she gave me in the emergency room. Everett nodded. Get some sleep. Stella, tomorrow, we go on the offensive. I walked to the nursery. I checked on my son one last time. Families pull together. Her card had said, she was right. My family was pulling together, me, Adam, Everett, and Marlene. She was about to find out what happens when you push the wrong people too far. The office of Redwood Fiduciary Services was not a physical place I could visit. It was a phone number with a 212 area code and a secure email portal that required two-factor authentication. Lila Hart sat at my kitchen table, her laptop open, guiding me through the formal request for documents. You need to ask for the full instrument, Lila said, tapping the screen with a manicured nail. Not just the summary is the brochure. The instrument is the contract. I typed the request. My fingers still stiff, but moving more surely than they had a few days ago. My headache had receded to a dull, manageable throb. I hit send. Now we wait, Lila said, closing her laptop, but not for long. Trustees get nervous when beneficiaries start asking questions. It implies liability. She was right. The response came less than 4 hours later. An email from a senior account manager named Mr. Sterling. The tone was professional, but guarded. Dear Ms. Morgan, we are in receipt of your request. Given the recent inquiries regarding your eligibility status and the current activation of the dependent clause, we believe a teleconference is necessary to clarify the standing of the trust. Please see the attached schedule. Recent inquiries regarding eligibility status. I read the line out loud. She has been busy, Everett said from the armchair. He was whittling a small piece of cedar, letting the shavings fall into a trash can. It was his nervous tick. We scheduled the call for the next morning. Mr. Sterling's voice was dry and precise, the kind of voice that sounded like it was being filtered through layers of expensive parchment. Lila put the phone on speaker in the center of the table. Ms. Morgan. Mr. Sterling began. We have received conflicting notifications regarding your capacity. Conflicting? I asked. I am speaking to you. I am capable. We received a notification of a medical event. Mr. Sterling said. Specifically, a severe automotive accident resulting in neurological trauma. The notification included a request to activate the Family Protection Clause. I looked at Lila. She scribbled on her legal pad. Ask who sent it. Who sent this notification? I asked. The notification came from the designated family representative on file. Mr. Sterling said. And who is that? I asked, though I already felt the cold stone of dread settling in my stomach. Marlene Morgan, he said. The room went silent. That designation is from when I was a child. I said, my voice rising. I am 33 years old. Mr. Sterling cleared his throat. The designation was established at the inception of the trust. It states that in the event the primary beneficiary, that is you, is medically incapacitated, the designated representative, your mother, has the authority to request safeguards. This includes the freezing of discretionary disbursements and the redirection of necessary funds to the representative for the care of dependents. Redirection of funds, there it was. She wasn't just trying to get the baby. She was trying to become the payee. She wanted the trust to pay her to take care of my son while I was incapacitated. But I'm not incapacitated. I said firmly, I have a concussion. I am recovering. I am back to work next week. That is good to hear. Mr. Sterling said. However, the clause is triggered by the report of incapacity until we have medical clearance stating otherwise, or a legal change of representative. We are required to pause direct payments to you. Pause payments? I asked. But I need that money. We have bills. I understand. Mr. Sterling said. That is why Mrs. Morgan has offered to administer the funds in the interim. She has requested a disbursement of $5,000 for immediate childcare expenses. $5,000. I looked at Adam. His face was red. She is trying to loot the account. Adam whispered, Mr. Sterling. Lila cut in, her voice like a rasp. This is Lila Hart, counsel for Ms. Morgan. We are formally contesting the incapacity claim. We will be providing a medical clearance letter from Ms. Morgan's neurologist within 24 hours. Furthermore, we are filing an immediate motion to remove Marlene Morgan as the designated representative. There was a pause on the line. I see. Mr. Sterling said, Well, that does complicate the narrative. We will send the paperwork. Lila said, Do not release a single cent to Marlene Morgan. If you do, we will sue you for breach of fiduciary duty. I will hold the disbursement pending review. Mr. Sterling said. Lila hung up. She leaned back in her chair and lit an unlit cigarette, just holding it in her mouth for comfort. She didn't update the clause, Lila said. She left herself as the representative from 20 years ago. She knew that if you ever got hurt, car crash, sickness, anything, she could swoop in. It is a sleeper cell, Everett said. She planted it years ago and just waited for the signal. We have to change it. I said, Now. We spent the afternoon drafting the new designation. It was a simple document, but it felt heavy with significance. I, Stella Morgan, hereby revoke all prior designations of family representatives. I appoint Everett Morgan as my primary representative for all trust-related matters. Everett signed it with a steady hand. You are sure? He asked me. You are the only one she can't buy. I said, We faxed it. We emailed it. We sent it certified mail. We built a wall of paper around the money. But Marlene did not fight only with paper. She fought with whispers. 2 days later, on a Tuesday, Adam came home early from work. He walked through the door looking like he had been punched in the gut. He dropped his keys on the counter and stood there, staring at the wall. What happened? I asked, rushing to him. Did you get fired? No, he said. Not fired, but... He sat down heavily. The boss called me into his office. Adam said. He closed the door. He looked uncomfortable, and he asked me if everything was okay at home. He said his wife got a call today. From who? Marlene. My blood boiled. She called your boss's wife? She knows her from the garden club or something, Adam said. She called her in confidence. She told her that she was worried about me. She said that I was under tremendous strain because my wife had suffered a psychotic break after the accident. Psychotic break? I shouted. I have a concussion. She didn't say concussion. Adam said, She said you were unstable. She said she was worried I was going to crack under the pressure of caring for a newborn and a mentally fragile spouse. She told the boss's wife to please have the company be lenient with me if my performance slipped. I paced the kitchen. It was brilliant. It was absolutely evil. But it was brilliant. She wasn't attacking him directly. She was framing it as concern. If Adam got angry, he looked ungrateful. If he denied it too loudly, he looked defensive. "What did you tell your boss?" I asked. "I told him the truth." Adam said, "I told him you had a concussion and your mother was difficult." "And?" "He believed me. I think," Adam said, but he looked at me differently. Like I was a drama magnet. Marlene made me a liability. "Stella, companies don't like liabilities. She is trying to isolate us." I said, "She wants you to lose your job, so we need her money. She wants to break your leg so she can offer you a crutch." The attacks were coming from all sides now. Financial, professional, social. I felt like I was standing in the center of a shrinking room. Then, my phone rang. It was Paige, my best friend from high school. We hadn't talked much since the baby was born. Life gets busy. But she was the kind of friend who would bury a body for me if I asked. "Stella?" Her voice was hushed. "Can you talk?" "Yeah." "Paige, what's wrong?" "I shouldn't be telling you this," she said. "I could get fired. But I don't care. Where are you?" "I'm at work," Paige said. "At the clinic." Paige worked in the billing department of the large multi-specialty clinic in town. It was where I had gone to the pediatrician for years as a kid, and where Marlene still saw her general practitioner. "I saw something today," Paige whispered. "I was processing a records request from the archives, okay? It was a request for your old records. Stella, from when you were like 8 to 12 years old. Why would anyone want those?" I asked. "That is what I thought," Paige said. So I looked at the requester. "It was your mom, Marlene?" "Yeah. But Stella, here is the weird part. The request date wasn't today. When was it?" 3 years ago. Paige said. I froze. 3 years ago? She put in a standing request for historical behavioral health records. Paige said, she wanted every note from every doctor who ever saw you for anxiety. Headaches, stomach aches, anything that could look like stress. She has been collecting a file on you since before you even got pregnant. I sat down on the floor. 3 years ago was when I got promoted. It was when I started making real money. It was when I stopped asking her for advice. She has been planning this for years, I whispered. It looks like she was building a profile. Paige said, a profile of a sick person. Stella, the notes she flagged. They are nothing. Patient complains of stomach ache before math test. Patient reports trouble sleeping. Normal kid stuff. But if you put it all together and squint, it looks like a history of instability. I finished. Exactly, Paige said. I just thought you should know. She isn't reacting to the accident. She has been waiting for it. I thanked Paige and hung up. I felt cold. I looked at Everett. He was in the nursery, changing the baby's diaper. He looked up when I walked in. She has been pulling my medical records for 3 years. I said. Everett paused. He fastened the diaper tab. He picked up the baby and held him close. I know, he said softly. You knew? I suspected. Everett said. Daniel suspected it too. Daniel? My dad? He died 20 years ago. Everett walked over to the rocking chair and sat down, settling the baby on his lap. Stella, he said, your father loved your mother. But he saw her. He saw the way she needed to be the hero of every story. And to be the hero, she needed a victim. He looked at me. When you were little, whenever you got sick, she was happy. Happy? She loved the attention. Everett said, she loved being the mother of the sick child. It made her feel important. Daniel was terrified that she would encourage it, that she would make you sick, or keep you sick, just to feed that need. Munchausen? I asked, the word tasting like ash. Not quite. Everett said, not medically, but emotionally? Yes. She needs you to be broken so she can be the one who holds the pieces. That is why he created the trust. I said, yes, Everett said. He told me, Dad, if I die, she will use the money to keep Stella under her thumb. She will make Stella feel like she can't survive on her own. So he locked the money up. He made it so she only got paid if she was raising you, but she couldn't touch the principal. He wanted you to escape, and I did. I said, I got a job, I got married, I got happy, and that drove her crazy. Everett said, "Your happiness is an insult to her. It means you don't need her." He looked down at the baby. And now there is a new baby, a new victim, and she wants a do-over. I looked at my son. He was so small, so perfect. She is not getting him. I said. Everett nodded. "It is time for the call." He said. "The call? The one I promised Daniel I would make if she ever crossed the line." He handed me the baby. "Hold him," he said. "I need to be a grandfather now." Everett went into the kitchen. I heard him dial the phone. I heard him ask for Mr. Sterling. This time, he didn't put it on speaker. I stood in the hallway, listening. "Mr. Sterling, this is Everett Morgan. I am the local liaison for the Daniel Morgan Trust. Yes, I am invoking the Protectorate Protocol." Protectorate Protocol. It sounded like something from a spy movie. "Yes," Everett said. "I am formally notifying you that the designated representative, Marlene Morgan, is acting in bad faith. I have evidence of coercion. I have evidence of financial malfeasance regarding her own debts. And I have evidence that she is attempting to manufacture a capacity dispute to access funds." He paused, listening. "Yes, I will send the documents. I have a sworn statement from the hospital staff regarding her refusal to provide care. I have the letter from her lawyer, and I have the timeline of her inquiries." He listened again. "No," Everett said, his voice dropping an octave. "This is not a family squabble. This is an attempted theft of the beneficiary's future. If you release one dime to her, I will personally lead the audit of your firm." "Silence, thank you," Everett said. "Freeze it, indefinitely." He hung up. He walked back into the hallway. He looked tired, but he looked lighter. "It is done," he said. "Mr. Sterling is freezing any changes. He is flagging her name. She can't touch the trust. She can't become the representative. The money is locked until the investigation is over. She will be furious." I said. "She will be desperate," Everett corrected. "And a desperate enemy makes mistakes." The mistake came 2 days later. It was a Friday. I was feeling better physically. The dizziness was gone. I had started doing light tasks around the house. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera on my phone. It wasn't Marlene. It was a courier. I opened the door. He handed me a thick envelope and left. It wasn't from a lawyer this time. It was from a mediation center, Harmony Family Resolutions. I opened it. Inside was a letter, printed on heavy cream paper. "Dear Stella, it pains me that we have reached this point of estrangement. I only want what is best for you and the baby. The misunderstandings of the last week have broken my heart. I have engaged a professional mediator to help us find a path forward. I am not asking for control. I am asking for a conversation. Please join me on Monday at 10 a.m. For the sake of the family. Mom." I read it twice. It sounded reasonable. It sounded sane. "It is a trap," Adam said, reading over my shoulder. "Of course it is a trap," I said. "But why?" Everett asked. He took the letter. He read it. "She lost the money." Everett said, "Mr. Sterling must have notified her that her request was denied and the account was frozen. She knows she can't get in through the back door anymore." "So she is trying the front door?" I asked. "She is trying to get you in a room." Everett said, "Mediation is voluntary. It's private. She thinks if she can get you in a room with a stranger, she can charm them. She can cry. She can tell her story about the ungrateful daughter and the car crash. She wants to look reasonable." I said, "If I refuse to go, I look like the stubborn one." "Exactly," Everett said. "She is betting you will either no-show, which she can use against you later in court, or you will show up and lose your temper." I looked at the letter. "I am not going to lose my temper." I said, "You aren't?" Adam asked. "No." I said, "I am going to go." "Stella, no," Adam said. "I have to." I said, "If I don't go," she spins this as me refusing reconciliation. She tells the town. She tells the family. She tells the judge that she tried everything. But if you go, she will manipulate you." Adam said, "Not this time." I said, I looked at Everett. I am not going alone. I am taking Lila. And I am taking you. Lila? Everett asked. She is my lawyer. I said, if Marlene wants a professional conversation, she is going to get one. And me? Adam asked. You are coming too. I said, you are the father. You need to look her in the eye and tell her that your wife is not crazy and your family is not for sale. Adam swallowed hard. He looked terrified, but he nodded. Okay, I'll do it. I walked to the window. The sun was shining, but the air was cold. I am going to find out what she really wants. I said, we know what she wants. Everett said, money and control. No. I said, that is the what. I want to know the why. I want to know why she hates me being happy. I want to hear her say it. I turned back to them. We go on Monday. We don't sign anything. We don't agree to anything. We just listen. And then, we end it. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Lila prepped us like we were going to trial. She will use emotional triggers. Lila warned. She will bring up your childhood. She will bring up your father. She will cry. Do not react to the tears. Treat them like weather. It is just rain. You don't get angry at rain. You just put up an umbrella. I practiced my breathing. I practiced my neutral face. Monday morning arrived. The mediation center was in a generic office park on the other side of town. Neutral ground. We walked in. Me, Adam, Everett, and Lila. Marlene was already there. She was sitting in the conference room. She was wearing a soft blue dress, pearls, and tasteful makeup. She looked like the grandmother from a greeting card commercial. She stood up when we entered. She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were darting around, assessing our formation. She saw Lila and her smile faltered. I thought this was a family meeting, Marlene said, her voice soft and hurt. It is, Lila said, placing her briefcase on the table with a heavy thud. And I am here to ensure the family is protected. Marlene looked at the mediator, a man with a beard and a gentle manner. I just wanted to talk to my daughter, Marlene said. I didn't think we needed lawyers. Stella feels more comfortable with support, the mediator said gently. Let's all sit down. We sat, Marlene on one side, the four of us on the other. It looked like a tribunal. Marlene clasped her hands on the table. She looked at me. Stella, she began, I know you are angry. I know the accident was traumatic. I just want to help. Stop, I said. My voice was calm. It wasn't loud, but it stopped her cold. We are not here to talk about my feelings. Mom, we are here because you tried to access my medical records. You tried to access my son's trust fund. You called my husband's boss. You told my neighbors I was negligent. Marlene's eyes widened. She looked at the mediator. See, she said, her voice trembling. This is the paranoia I was talking about. She thinks I'm attacking her. I was just trying to ensure the baby was safe. Why did you refuse to come to the hospital? I asked. I didn't refuse, Marlene cried. I was in shock. I couldn't bear to see you like that. We have the nurse's log, Everett said. Marlene snapped her head toward him. You stay out of this. Dad? The mediator raised a hand. Let's stick to the present. Marlene, what is your goal for this meeting? Marlene took a breath. She composed herself. I want to establish a plan, she said. A safety plan. Given Stella's history and the current situation, I believe it is in the baby's best interest for me to have temporary guardianship, just until Stella is fully recovered. There it was, guardianship. And what does guardianship give you? Lila asked. It gives me the ability to make decisions, Marlene said, to ensure bills are paid, to ensure the child has resources. Resources. I said, you mean the trust? Marlene flinched. This isn't about money. It is always about money, I said. I leaned forward. I know about the debt. Mom, I know about the second mortgage. I know about the credit cards. Marlene's face went still. The mask of the grieving grandmother vanished. Underneath was something sharp and cold. You don't know anything, she whispered. I know you need a lifeline, I said, and I know you decided my son was it. Marlene stared at me. The silence in the room was electric. The mediator looked back and forth, sensing the shift. "Fine," Marlene said. Her voice changed. It became the voice from the phone, the voice from the doorway. "You want the truth?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "The truth is that you are weak. Stella, you have always been weak. You fell apart when your goldfish died. You fell apart when you didn't get into the first-choice college. You are soft. And that baby? That baby needs someone strong." "Like you?" Adam asked. "Yes, like me," Marlene shouted. "I kept this family alive. I did what had to be done. And if I need a little help now, if I need the family to support me the way I supported you, you didn't support us," Everett said quietly. "You spent Daniel's money on looking rich." "I deserved it," Marlene screamed. She stood up, knocking her chair back. "I deserved a life. I wasn't going to be a widow in a rundown house." The mediator stood up. "Okay, let's take a break." "No break," I said. I stood up too. I looked at my mother. I saw her for what she was, a frightened, greedy woman who had convinced herself that her selfishness was sacrifice. "We are done here," I said. "I am not signing anything. You are not getting guardianship. You are not getting the trust." Marlene looked at me. Her chest was heaving. "You will regret this," she hissed. "No," I said. "I won't." I turned to walk out. "Stella," she yelled. I didn't look back. I walked out the door, past the receptionist, and into the parking lot. The sun was brighter now. I felt shaking in my hands. But my heart was steady. I had faced her. I had called her out. And I had walked away. But as we got to the car, Lila stopped me. "She isn't done," Lila said. "I know." I said, "She admitted to the debt." Lila said, "That is leverage. But it also makes her dangerous. A drowning person will climb on top of anyone to breathe." "What is her next move?" Adam asked. "She tried the hospital. She tried the trust. She tried the boss. She tried mediation. She has one card left," Everett said. "What?" I asked. "The court of public opinion," Everett said. He pointed to the calendar on his phone. "The Harvest Festival is this Saturday," he said. "The whole town goes." So, Everett said. "If she can't win in a private room, she will try to win on the main stage. She will try to humiliate you in front of everyone you know. Let her try." I said. I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew who she was, and more importantly, I knew who I was. I was the mother who survived, and I was ready for the finale. We did not leave the parking lot. I had my hand on the door handle of Adam's truck, my breath fogging in the cold morning air, when Lila's hand clamped down on my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her fingers digging into the sleeve of my coat. "You cannot walk away," she said. Her voice was low, rasping with the accumulated gravel of 1,000 courtroom battles. I looked at her. I just did. I said, "I am done listening to her lies." "If you leave now," Lila said, lighting a cigarette despite the no smoking sign posted 5 feet away, "she wins the record. She stays in that room with the mediator for the next hour. She tells him you stormed out. She tells him you are volatile. She weeps into a tissue and says she tried everything. The mediator writes a report that says mother declined to participate. That report goes to a judge. I felt the anger burn in my throat, hot and acidic, so I have to sit there and let her abuse me?" "No," Lila said, blowing a stream of smoke away from the baby's car seat. "You go back in there and you put her on the record. You make her say the quiet parts out loud. You don't leave until the mediator sees the teeth behind the lipstick." I looked at Adam. He looked sick, his face pale and sweating. But he nodded. "Lila is right." Everett said gently, "We finish this." We turned around and walked back into the building. The receptionist looked up, surprised, but we marched past her. When we re-entered the conference room, Marlene was dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She looked up, and for a fraction of a second, I saw annoyance flicker across her face before the mask of relief slid back into place. "Stella," she breathed. "Thank God. I knew you would come back. I knew you wouldn't abandon your mother." I sat down. I didn't smile. I placed my composition notebook, the one with the sewn binding, on the table. We are not here to reconcile, I said. We are here to clarify facts. The mediator, a man named Mr. Davis, who looked like he would rather be anywhere else on earth, cleared his throat. I am glad you returned. Mrs. Morgan. Marlene was just sharing her perspective on the communication breakdown. I opened my notebook. Go ahead. I said. Marlene turned to Mr. Davis. She ignored me completely. It has been a nightmare, she said, her voice trembling with a perfect, practiced vibrato. All I wanted was to be there for my daughter. I received the call about the accident, and I was paralyzed with fear. But when I tried to offer help, financial help, childcare help, I was met with hostility. I was shut out. She looked at me then, her eyes swimming with tears. I just want to see my grandson. Stella, why are you punishing me for caring too much? I felt Adam tense beside me. I put a hand on his arm to steady him. Marlene, I said. My voice was flat. On October 24th, at 2:30 in the afternoon, the charge nurse called you from the emergency room. What did you say to her? Marlene blinked. I don't recall the exact words. I was in shock. I looked down at my notebook. You told her, and I'm quoting the hospital log, I will not come unless the baby is kept out of it. You also said, she should have been more careful. That is a distortion, Marlene cried. I meant that I couldn't bear to see the baby in a trauma ward. It was protective. You refused to come. I said, that is a fact. Marlene waved her hand dismissively. That is in the past. We are talking about the future. We are talking about the fact that you are currently recovering from a brain injury and making impulsive decisions that threaten this family's stability. She turned to the mediator. This is my concern, she said, leaning forward conspiratorially. It isn't just about custody. It is about the legacy. Lila sat up straighter. The legacy? Marlene nodded gravely. Daniel's trust. It was built on relationships with certain financial institutions. It has a reputation clause. If the beneficiary, that is Stella, is seen as publicly unstable, or if there is a lapse in responsible stewardship, the trustees can initiate a review. She looked at me with faux pity. If you continue this erratic behavior, Stella, locking me out, revoking permissions, spreading rumors, you could trigger an audit. The family could lose access to the future funds entirely. I am trying to step in as a steward to prevent that embarrassment. I stared at her. It was a new angle. She was trying to frame her power grab as a rescue mission for the money itself. That is a fascinating interpretation of trust law, Lila said. Her voice was dry as bone. Marlene bristled. I know how the trust works. I helped write it. Actually, Lila said, pulling a folder from her briefcase. You didn't. Daniel wrote it, and I have reviewed the instrument. There is no reputation clause. There is no audit trigger based on the beneficiary's mental health. Unless there is a criminal conviction. Marlene's face tightened. There are implied conditions. No, there are not, Lila said. But since we are talking about stability, let's talk about the timeline. Lila slid a piece of paper across the table. This is a record of a call made to the hospital switchboard. She said. Marlene glanced at it and looked away. The call was made at 10 in the morning on the day of the accident. Lila said, 4 hours before the crash. The caller asked for guardianship forms for an infant. Marlene picked at a loose thread on her dress. I don't know what that is. The caller ID matches your cell phone. Marlene, Lila said. The room went silent. The hum of the air conditioner seemed to get louder. Why were you asking for guardianship papers before I even got in the car? I asked. Marlene stayed silent for a long moment. Then, she looked up. The tears were gone. Her eyes were hard and bright. Because I knew. She said, You knew what? I knew you would make a mistake, she said. Her voice was cold, devoid of the earlier theatricality. I watched you with that baby. You were tired. You were overwhelmed. You were rushing back to work. It was only a matter of time before you dropped him, or crashed the car, or had a breakdown. I was just being prepared. A chill went down my spine. It was a confession of preemptive malice. She hadn't just waited for me to fail. She had been rooting for it. "So you were banking on a tragedy?" Adam asked. His voice cracked. "I was banking on probability," Marlene snapped. "And I was right. Wasn't I? Look at you. You crashed the car. You are in a sling. If I hadn't been ready to step in—" "But you didn't step in," Everett said quietly. Marlene swung her head toward him. "You didn't step in to help." Everett continued. "You stepped in to take control of the assets." He placed a document on the table. It wasn't legal-sized. It was a credit report summary. Marlene stared at it. Her face drained of color. "You have a second mortgage on the house," Everett said. "Taken out 18 months ago. You have $40,000 in credit card debt distributed across 5 cards. And you have a personal loan from a high-interest lender that is currently 60 days past due." Marlene snatched the paper. "Where did you get this? This is illegal." "It is public record when there are liens against your property," Everett said calmly. "You are drowning. Marlene, you didn't want guardianship to save the baby. You wanted guardianship to save yourself. You needed the trust stipend to pay your mortgage." Marlene stood up. She was shaking. "How dare you?" she hissed. "I am the matriarch of this family. I have kept this family afloat for 30 years. By spending money you didn't have," Everett said, his voice rising for the first time. "By spending Daniel's insurance. By trying to trick me into co-signing a loan 3 years ago." I looked at Everett. He had never told me that. "She tried to make you co-sign?" I asked. "She brought me papers for a home improvement loan," Everett said. "She told me it was for the roof. I read the fine print. It was a consolidation loan for her gambling debts." "Gambling?" I whispered. "Stocks." Marlene spat. "It was speculation. I was trying to grow the capital." "You were gambling," Everett said. "And when you tapped me out, and you couldn't tap Stella out because she was too smart, you waited for the baby. You waited for a helpless beneficiary." Marlene looked around the room. She looked at the mediator, who was furiously taking notes. She looked at Adam. She looked at me. She realized the narrative had shattered. There was no grieving grandmother here. There was only a desperate debtor. She sat back down. She smoothed her dress. "Fine," she said. Her voice was icy. "I have financial struggles. That doesn't mean I don't love the child. It means you have a conflict of interest," Lila said. "And it means you will never, ever get near that trust." Marlene laughed. It was a brittle, ugly sound. "You think you can cut me out?" she said. "I am the only reason anyone in this town respects the name Morgan. You think you can survive without me? You'll be social pariahs." I looked at her. I saw the fear behind the threat. She was terrified of being irrelevant. She was terrified of being poor. "I am willing to offer a path," I said. Everyone looked at me. Marlene narrowed her eyes. "What kind of path?" "A boundary," I said. I opened my notebook to a blank page. "You can see the baby," I said. Marlene's shoulders dropped slightly. "Under supervision." I continued. "Once a month, in a public place, for 1 hour. That is an insult," Marlene said. "It is an offer," I said, "but there are conditions." I listed them, counting on my fingers. 1. No access to any paperwork, medical, financial, or educational. 2. You rescind the request for my medical records immediately. 3. You never contact my husband's employer again. 4. You stop talking to the neighbors about my parenting. And if I don't agree? Marlene challenged. "Then you get nothing." I said, "You get no visits. You get no photos. And Lila files a restraining order based on financial harassment." Marlene scoffed. She rolled her eyes toward the ceiling. "A restraining order? Please. No judge will grant that against a grandmother." The mediator looked up. "Actually, Mrs. Morgan, given the evidence of the pre-accident guardianship inquiry and the financial liens, a judge might view your actions as predatory." Marlene froze. She looked at the mediator with pure venom. "You are supposed to be neutral," she snapped. I am looking at the best interest of the child, the mediator said. Financial instability in a guardian is a risk factor. Marlene went silent. She looked at her hands. She was calculating. I could see the wheels turning. She needed to stay close to the family to maintain her social standing. If she was cut off, the town would talk. If the town talked, her creditors might get nervous. She looked up. She forced a smile. It was tight and gruesome. Fine, she said. If that is what it takes to heal this family, I will agree to your rules. For now, for good. I said. Adam cleared his throat. And one more thing, he said. Marlene looked at him, surprised he was speaking. You don't call me, Adam said. Excuse me? You don't call me to check on Stella, Adam said. His voice shook slightly, but he kept going. You don't call me to complain about her. You don't use me as a backdoor. If you have something to say, you say it to us together, or you don't say it at all. Marlene raised an eyebrow. Adam, really? I thought we had a rapport. We don't. Adam said, I was afraid of you. I was afraid of rocking the boat. But you tried to get me fired. Marlene, you messed with my livelihood. That's done. He turned to me. He ignored Marlene completely. Stella, he said, I am sorry. I looked at him. I should have stopped her months ago. He said, I should have hung up the phone. I let her in because I was weak. I promise you. I am done being the nice guy. I took his hand. Thank you, I whispered. I looked back at Marlene. We are done, I said. We stood up. Marlene didn't stand. She sat there, staring at the table, her hands clenching and unclenching. We walked out. This time, it felt real. The victory felt fragile. We drove home in silence. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me exhausted. My head throbbed. I went straight to the bedroom and lay down in the dark. I wanted to believe it was over. I wanted to believe that Marlene would take the deal, see the baby once a month, and fade into the background. But I knew her. She didn't fade. She regrouped. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was an email. The sender was anonymous_watcher_88. I sat up, squinting against the screen light. The subject line was blank. I opened it. My breath caught in my throat. They were photos. High-resolution photos. The first one was my car in the ditch. It was taken from the road. Looking down, you could see the crushed roof. You could see the shattered glass. The second one was a zoom-in on the back seat. You could see the empty car seat base. The third one was me. It was taken through the window of the ambulance. I was bloody, my eyes wide and vacant, my mouth open in a scream. I looked deranged. I looked terrified. Below the photos was a single line of text. A mother who can't drive safely shouldn't be trusted. The town deserves to see what really happened. I dropped the phone on the duvet. It wasn't just intimidation, it was a threat of publication. She hired someone. I whispered. Adam came in. What is it? I pointed to the phone. Don't touch it. Just look. Adam looked. He recoiled. Who took these? He asked. A tow truck driver? A paramedic? A bystander? I said, she bought them. She found someone who was at the scene and she bought the photos. Why? Adam asked. To shame me. I said, to show the world that I am a disaster. I called Lila. She answered on the first ring. She sent photos. I said, send them to me. Lila said instantly, do not delete them. Do not reply. I forwarded the email. This is escalation, Lila said. She is losing on the legal front, so she is moving to terrorism. Can we stop her? I asked. If we can prove she sent them, Lila said, but an anonymous email is hard to trace quickly. Stella, you need to think about a protective order, a formal one, no contact. I hesitated. If I get a restraining order, I said, it goes in the paper, it becomes public record. It does. Lila said, everyone will know. I said, the people at the grocery store, the people at Adam's job, they will know I am suing my own mother. They will know you are protecting yourself. Lila said, I don't know. I said, I felt the old fear creeping back. The fear of the scene. The fear of being the girl with the crazy mother. I need to think about it. Take the night, Lila said. But Stella? This isn't a game to her. She is willing to burn the house down if she can't live in it. I went downstairs. Everett was in the kitchen, making a sandwich. He looked at my face and stopped. She did something, he said. I told him about the photos. He put the knife down. He didn't look angry. He looked sad, a deep, weary sadness that seemed to pull at his skin. She has crossed the Rubicon, he said. What do we do? Grandpa? I asked. I am scared to make it public. I am scared of the scandal. Everett wiped his hands on a towel. Come here, he said. He led me into the living room. He sat down and patted the cushion beside him. I need to tell you something, he said. What? I went to the lawyer yesterday. He said, not Lila. My estate lawyer. Why? I updated my will. Everett said, and I updated the trust liaison documents. He looked at me, his blue eyes clear and steady. I removed Marlene from everything. He said, everything? I left her a small stipend. He said, enough so she can't contest the will claiming I forgot her. But the cabin, the boat, the small savings I have, it all goes to you. And the trust liaison role? If something happens to me, it transfers to Adam. I stared at him. Grandpa, she will never forgive you. I know, Everett said. She will hate you. I said, she will say you betrayed her. He took my hand. Stella, he said, I spent 40 years trying to keep the peace. I spent 40 years trying to manage her, to soften her edges, to explain her away. I thought if I just loved her enough, or if I was just patient enough, she would settle down. He shook his head. I was wrong. You can't love a storm into silence. He squeezed my hand. I am not choosing sides. Stella, I am choosing safety. I am choosing the baby. And if that means I die with my daughter hating me, then that is the price I pay for protecting my great-grandson. I started to cry. It was the first time I had really cried since the hospital. Not from fear, but from relief. I wasn't alone. I had a patriarch who was actually acting like one. She is going to explode, I said, when she finds out. She is, Everett agreed, and she is going to use those photos. I said, she is going to try to ruin me before she goes down. Likely, Everett said. So what do we do? We get ready, Everett said. He looked out the window at the dark street. The Harvest Festival is in 2 days. He said, yeah, she will be there. Everett said, she has to be. It's her stage. I nodded. She is going to make a move, Everett said. She is going to try to force a confrontation where you can't walk away, where there are no lawyers, just the town watching. Then we will be there too. I said, are you sure? Everett asked. You can stay home. You can hide. No, I said. I looked at the dark screen of my phone, where the image of my bloodied face was hidden. She wants to show the town who I am? I asked. Fine, let her. But I'm going to show the town who she is. I stood up. I am done hiding. Grandpa, if she wants a show, we will give her one. But she isn't going to like the ending. I went upstairs and checked on the baby. Adam was asleep, one arm thrown over his eyes. I sat in the rocking chair. I thought about the mediation, the lies, the debt, the photos. I thought about the boundary I had offered her. Respect me. She couldn't do it. It wasn't in her nature. To her, respect was submission. And since I wouldn't submit, I was the enemy. I closed my eyes and visualized the Harvest Festival. The crowds, the noise, the perfect place for a narcissist to make a final stand. I felt a strange calm settle over me. The dread was gone. Let her come. I thought I was ready. The Harvest Festival was an annual tradition in our river town, a day when the air smelled of wood smoke and apple cider, and the high school football field was transformed into a maze of craft tents and hay bales. It was the kind of event where attendance was mandatory if you wanted to maintain your standing in the community. If you were absent, people assumed you were sick, divorced, or hiding something. I was not hiding. I walked through the gates with Adam on my left and Everett on my right. My arm was still in a sling. The black fabric stark against my cream sweater, but I held my head high. The baby was strapped to Adam's chest in a carrier. Facing inward, shielded from the noise and the prying eyes, it took less than 5 minutes to spot her. Marlene was standing near the charity raffle booth. She was wearing a rust-colored coat that matched the autumn leaves perfectly, holding a cup of steaming cider with both hands. She was surrounded by 3 women from her church group. I saw her perform the moment. She tilted her head, dabbed at the corner of her eye, and placed a hand on the arm of the woman next to her. She looked fragile. She looked saintly. I tightened my grip on Everett's arm. "She is working the room," I whispered. "Let her work," Everett said softly. "We are just here to walk." As we moved closer, the crowd parted slightly. People saw me. They saw the sling. They saw the baby. The murmurs started, a low, buzzing frequency that I could feel in my teeth. Then, Marlene saw us. Her face lit up with an expression of tragic hope. It was a masterpiece of acting. She took a step toward us, her arms opening slightly, as if she were about to rush across the grass and embrace the prodigal daughter. "Stella," she called out. Her voice was just loud enough to turn heads. "Oh, thank God you are out and about." She started to move toward us. I stopped walking. I didn't retreat, but I didn't advance. I just stood there, flanked by my husband and my grandfather, and I looked at her. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just offered a flat, neutral gaze. The air between us crackled. Marlene hesitated. She sensed the wall. If she ran to me and I recoiled, she would look aggressive. If she stopped, she looked rejected. She was calculating the angles. She stopped 10 feet away. "I have been praying for you, Stella," she said, her voice trembling. "I have been praying for reconciliation every single day." I looked at her. "Thank you," I said. My voice was calm, carrying over the quieted crowd. "We are doing very well." I turned to Adam. "Let's look at the pumpkins." We walked away. We left her standing there, arms half raised, frozen in her tableau of grief. I didn't look back, but I could feel her eyes boring into my spine. I could feel the heat of her humiliation. She had wanted a scene. She had wanted me to scream or cry so she could comfort me. By giving her nothing, absolutely nothing, I had denied her the oxygen she needed to burn. The victory at the festival was psychological, but the real war was still being fought on paper. 2 days later, on a Tuesday morning, I received a call from Redwood Fiduciary Services. It was Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Morgan, he said. His voice was brisk. "We have completed our preliminary review of the trust files and the recent inquiries made by your mother." "And?" I asked, gripping the phone. "We found inconsistencies." "Mr. Sterling said, significant ones. It appears that Mrs. Morgan attempted to recategorize certain assets as commingled family funds about 5 years ago. That request was denied at the time, but she recently referenced it again in her communication with our junior analysts. What does that mean? It means she has been trying to blur the lines between the trust and her personal estate for a long time." Mr. Sterling said, "Based on this, and the documentation provided by your grandfather regarding her current insolvency, we have grounds to remove her permanently as the designated representative." I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for weeks. "So it is over?" I asked. "Not quite," Mr. Sterling said. "We sent her a notification of removal yesterday. She has a 48-hour window to contest the decision." "She will contest it," I said immediately. "She already has." Mr. Sterling replied, "We received a formal challenge this morning. She is not arguing for custody. Ms. Morgan, she is arguing for stewardship." "Stewardship?" "She claims that you are under undue influence from your husband and grandfather, and that she is the only neutral party capable of protecting the historic legacy of the Morgan family. She has demanded a formal fiduciary hearing." "A hearing?" "It is an internal review board," Mr. Sterling explained. "We conduct them via video conference. It is essentially a tribunal to determine who is the safest pair of hands for the money. If she wins, she remains the representative, and she can block your access to funds while petitioning for an allowance for herself. When is it? I asked. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Mr. Sterling said. I looked at the calendar on the wall. We will be there, I said. The hearing was held in the conference room of Lila Hart's home office. We set up a laptop on a stack of encyclopedias to get the angle right. Lila sat in the center, wearing a blazer over her house dress. Everett sat to her right. I sat to her left. Adam sat behind us, a silent sentinel. The screen flickered to life. Mr. Sterling was there, sitting in a glass-walled office in New York. Beside him was a woman I didn't know, the compliance officer. And in the bottom square of the screen was Marlene. She was sitting in her kitchen. She had dressed for court, a high-collared navy blouse, her hair sprayed into a helmet of perfection. She looked composed. She looked like a CEO. Mr. Sterling called the meeting to order. We are here to review the challenge regarding the removal of Marlene Morgan as designated representative of the Daniel Morgan Trust. He said, Marlene, you have the floor. Marlene looked directly into the camera. She didn't look at me. Thank you. Mr. Sterling, she began. Her voice was smooth, devoid of the hysterical edge she used in person. I am contesting this removal because it is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of the family dynamic. She said, my daughter, Stella, is currently recovering from a severe neurological trauma. We all wish her a speedy recovery. However, in her confused state, she has fallen under the influence of individuals who do not have the long-term interests of the trust at heart. She glanced briefly at Everett's square on the screen. My father-in-law, Everett, is a dear man, but he is 80 years old. He has been out of the workforce for 2 decades. And Stella's husband, well, his employment history is spotty at best. I felt Adam stiffen behind me. I am the only person in this equation who understands the intent of my late husband. Daniel, Marlene continued, he built this trust not just to hand out cash, but to ensure the moral and financial continuity of the family. I am simply trying to hold the line until Stella is herself again. She folded her hands. I am asking to remain as representative solely to prevent the assets from being drained by impulsive decisions during a crisis. It was a good speech. If I didn't know her, I would have believed her. She sounded rational. She sounded protective. Mr. Sterling turned to the compliance officer. Then to us. Ms. Morgan? Mr. Sterling asked. Your response? Lila nudged me under the table. I leaned forward. I looked at the camera lens, pretending it was Marlene's eye. My mother speaks about intent, I said, and she speaks about safety. So I would like to present a few facts about safety. I opened my notebook. On October 24th, I was admitted to the emergency room with a concussion and a fractured wrist. My mother was called. The hospital log, which has been submitted to you as Evidence A, states that she refused to come to the hospital. Marlene shifted in her seat on the screen. I am not sure how a scheduling conflict is relevant to a financial trust, she interrupted smoothly. It wasn't a scheduling conflict, I said. You told the nurse, and I quote, I will not come unless the baby is kept out of it. I paused. If you are the protector of the family. Mom, why did you abandon the beneficiary in a trauma ward? Marlene's smile didn't waver, but her eyes tightened. I was establishing a boundary. She said, I felt that bringing an infant into a hospital environment was reckless. I was trying to teach you safety. Teaching me safety by leaving me alone with a brain injury? I asked. I knew you were in good hands. Marlene said, the doctors were there. I was managing the situation from afar. That is what a steward does. They manage the big picture. I see. I said, and does a steward also spread rumors that the beneficiary is negligent? I held up the affidavit Mrs. Higgins had signed that morning. This is a sworn statement from our neighbor. I said, it details a conversation where Marlene Morgan claimed I nearly killed my child in the accident. A claim she knew was false, because she knew the baby wasn't in the car. Marlene waved her hand. Gossip, she said. Small-town chatter. And this? I asked. I held up the printout of the anonymous email. The the photo of my bloodied face. This was sent to me 3 days ago. I said, it was an attempt to blackmail me into silence. Marlene laughed. It sounded tinny through the laptop speakers. Stella. Really? You think I sent that? You have enemies. Dear, you can't blame me for the world being cruel. I watched her. She was slippery. She had an answer for everything. She was winning the optics war because she refused to get emotional. Then, Mr. Sterling spoke up. Mrs. Morgan, he said, I have a question. Marlene nodded. Yes. Mr. Sterling, you stated that you refused to go to the hospital because you wanted to protect the infant from a reckless environment. Yes, Marlene said. And yet, Mr. Sterling said, looking at a document on his desk, our records show that at 10 in the morning on that same day, 4 hours before the accident, you contacted our office to ask if the Family Protection Clause could be activated to redirect funds to you in the event of the mother's incapacity. Marlene froze. I was making a general inquiry. She stammered. The timing is specific. Mr. Sterling said, you asked about incapacity hours before the incapacity occurred, and then, when the accident happened, you refused to go to the hospital. He took off his glasses. To an outside observer, Mrs. Morgan, it looks like you were waiting for the accident to happen, and when it did, you stayed away to ensure the narrative of instability could take root without your interference. Marlene's mouth opened, then closed. She looked trapped. I was concerned, she snapped. A mother has intuition. Intuition is not a legal defense for a breach of fiduciary duty. Mr. Sterling said coldly. Marlene's face began to redden. You don't understand, she said, her voice rising. Stella is weak. She has always been weak. She needs someone to manage her. Daniel knew that. That is a lie, Everett said. Everett spoke for the first time. He leaned into the frame. Everett, Marlene warned. Don't you dare. Everett reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a folded piece of yellowed paper. It looked old. The creases worn deep. This is Daniel's letter of intent, Everett said. He wrote it the week before he died. He gave it to me for safekeeping. He told me to read it only if you ever tried to take control of Stella's life again. He unfolded the paper. Marlene went deadly silent. Everett put on his reading glasses. To my father. Everett. He read, I am worried about Marlene. She loves Stella, but she loves control more. She needs Stella to be small so she can be big. If I die, I fear she will use the money to keep Stella dependent. She will call it help, but it will be a leash. Everett looked up at the camera. Please ensure, he continued reading, that the trust is never used to fund Marlene's debts, and please ensure that if Stella ever has a child of her own. Marlene is kept away from the finances. Marlene thinks children are property. Stella deserves to be free. Everett lowered the paper. He didn't think she was weak. Marlene, Everett said softly. He thought she was strong, and he was terrified you would break her. Marlene stared at the screen. The color had drained from her face. The image of the composed CEO was gone. She looked old. She looked exposed. That is a forgery. She whispered. It is notarized, Everett said. Dated 1999. Mr. Sterling looked at the compliance officer. They exchanged a nod. I think we have heard enough. Mr. Sterling said, Marlene Morgan, the review board finds that your actions constitute a conflict of interest and a breach of the trust's intent. Your challenge is denied. You are hereby removed as representative. Effective immediately, Mr. Everett Morgan is confirmed as the new liaison. Marlene didn't scream. She didn't cry. She went very, very still. She looked at the camera. Her eyes were blank, like a shark's eyes. You are making a mistake, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The connection is terminated. Mr. Sterling said. The screen went black. We sat in silence in Lila's office for a long moment. She is gone, Adam said. It sounded like a question. She is gone from the money, Lila said, closing her laptop. The lever is broken. She can't touch you financially ever again. I felt a profound sense of exhaustion wash over me. It was done. The paperwork wars were over. We walked out of Lila's house. The afternoon sun was blinding, and she was there. Marlene was standing on the sidewalk, leaning against her silver sedan. She must have driven over immediately after the video call ended. She was still wearing the navy blouse. Adam stepped in front of me. Everett stepped up beside him. She didn't look at them. She looked at me. "Stella," she said. "Let's go." Adam said, "Get in the car." "Stella." I put a hand on Adam's back. "It's okay," I said. I walked around Adam. I stood 5 feet from her. "You lost." "Mom," I said. Marlene smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was a small, sad, terrifying smile. It was the smile of someone who realizes the house has burned down. So they might as well enjoy the warmth of the ashes. "I didn't lose," she said softly. "I just ran out of time. You ran out of victims." I said. She tilted her head. She looked at my sling. She looked at my face, searching for the fear she used to plant there. "You think I am a monster," she said. "I think you are sad." I said, "And I think you are dangerous because you don't know where you end and other people begin." Marlene laughed. A short, sharp sound. "I loved you, Stella. I loved you so much, I wanted to make sure you never made a mistake." "No," I said. "You didn't love me. You loved owning me." Marlene stepped closer. She lowered her voice so only I could hear. "I wasn't refusing you at the hospital," she said. "I waited. I was refusing the version of you I can't control," she whispered. "The version of you that thinks she can live without me." I don't know her, and I don't want to save her. It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. It was a cruelty so pure it felt like clarity. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to explain myself to her. I didn't feel the need to apologize. I nodded. That version of me doesn't need saving. "Mom," I said. I stepped back. "You don't get access to my child through me," I said, "and you don't get access to me at all. Not until you learn that love isn't a transaction." I turned around. "Come on," I said to Adam and Everett. We walked to the truck. I heard Marlene's car door open and close. I heard her engine start. I didn't look back. 6 months later, the snow was melting in the valley, revealing the brown earth underneath. My wrist was fully healed, though it still ached when it rained. We were in the kitchen. The baby, Leo, was sitting in his high chair, smashing sweet potatoes into his hair. Everett was reading the newspaper at the table. Adam was washing dishes. It was a boring, quiet Sunday. There were no frantic texts. There were no surprise visits. There were no letters from lawyers. Marlene had moved. She sold the house to pay off the debts, Everett suspected, and moved to a condo in Florida. She sent a card at Christmas. It was generic. Season's greetings. No check. No note. I didn't send one back. It wasn't a happy ending in the way movies have happy endings. There was a hole where a mother should have been. There was a grief that came in waves. A mourning for the relationship I wanted but never had. But there was peace. I looked at Leo. He looked up at me and grinned, his face covered in orange mush. He reached out a sticky hand. I took it. I didn't worry about the mess. I didn't worry about controlling the narrative. I didn't worry about whether he was performing correctly. I just wiped his face. This is what it feels like. I thought, this is what it feels like to break the cycle. It is quiet, it is messy, and it is mine. Thank you so much for listening to Stella's story. I hope this journey through family secrets, betrayal, and the hard-won fight for boundaries resonated with you. It is a reminder that sometimes the hardest battles we fight are within our own homes, and that revenge isn't always about hurting others. Sometimes it is just about protecting yourself. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to deal with administrative aggression or family members who use paperwork as a weapon? Please share your thoughts in English below. And if you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to Revenge Stories. We have many more tales of justice, resilience, and truth coming your way. Stay safe, stay strong, and remember, you are the author of your own narrative.